like metal had basically stagnated, and in the Bay Area, like the thrash scene totally died. And like a lot of bands were coming out doing kind of like Primus, Faith No More, kind of thrashy, funky, and we hated all that. And we set out to kind of keep doing heavy stuff, but in a different way. And I'd come out of Violence, and I kind of burned out on Violence. Violence had just kind of faded out, and I really wanted to do something different. I mean, I was very, focused on the fact that I didn't want, if I was going to do this, I was going to do this on my own 2 feet and my own merits. So, I made a conscious decision to never mention Violence. I never said, the demo or the album or a show flyer. It never said, ooh, featuring Robb Flynn of Violence. It was like, we're going to do this on our fucking own, and, that's it. I refused to talk about Violence in interviews for that whole album cycle and even farther into that. And it was really just, forging our own path and just, carving a niche for ourselves. And so that was kind of the mindset. We shared a rehearsal room, the 4 punk rock bands, and it was a rad rehearsal room that like had nothing but all these cool punk rock flyers. The punk scene at that point was very, very strong, a very kind of like political punk scene, and so there was all these, Econochrist and Grimple, all the bands like that with like flyers everywhere, and it was like a cool vibe. And we just shared this room. We'd set up our gear, jam, and then just set it back in the corner, and everybody's gear was over in the corner, and nobody fucked with anybody's gear, and we all just, it was a very cool vibe. It was in Oakland, in crusty Oakland, so it was kind of like, a lot of black people, and we were kind of like the crazy white dudes in the predominantly black neighborhood. And, like a lot of the neighborhood did rub off on us. A lot of hip hop around. We were listening to hip hop. We liked it, and a lot of that kind of street level, attitude is what really came out of that. We were in the streets, and that definitely is a vibe that you feel on that record. Musically, we were trying to go for more groove and heavy. We were influenced by, a lot of the hardcore and kind of like, especially bands like, Biohazard, who were kind of taking rap and hardcore and combining it, or Neurosis, stuff like that. That was just different. And most of the shows we were playing were with like punk rock bands or Rancid. We did a lot of shows with Rancid, or did a few shows with Rancid and Neurosis and Napalm Death and stuff like that. Death metal bands. It was never like a proper metal band, but we were a metal band. So we kind of play into that not so friendly audience. Definitely, it helped us get our chops up. Because it wasn't necessarily guaranteed that people were going to like us. It was a punk rock, a crusty punk rock audience, leather, bristles, studs, and acne kind of vibe. So we were a bunch of long hairs. So, yeah, it was cool. And then, we came out touring behind it. The first tour that we did, Napalm Death and Obituary, took us out in America. And that was, half the tour was before the album dropped. And it was cool, we had some good shows and some bad shows. We weren't necessarily the most liked band on that bill, that's for sure. It was kind of different, and we weren't blasting, and we weren't death metaling the whole way, and there was a little bit of singing here and there, and it was like, fuck, so it was kind of but then we hit certain places. New York, we did great. Kind of the East Coast, we did really good. Obviously, the Bay Area, we did really good.
And the album itself was, the critics loved it, didn't they, at the time, especially over here in the UK?
In Europe, in the UK, they did, yeah. In America, we couldn't get anybody to pay attention to us. We got a 2-page spread at the back of some crummy magazine, and in America, it was such a different world. Over here, it was we charted. number 25, you know, it was like on MTV. We hosted Headbangers Ball. It was like friggin' massive. We went and did the Slayer tour. In America, it was like the polar opposite. We had, you know, small buzz for an underground band, but no Headbangers Ball, no magazine coverage, you know, not even like good reviews. Like, I remember one review like in America that was like in a big magazine, and it was just like, yeah, these guys are pretty good if you like prom. And it was just like, all right. So it's definitely, it took a long time for the press in America, the media in America, and even the fans in America to kind of catch on to what we were doing. It was a slow build over there for sure.
And with the breath and the blood of holy